This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe and welcome to our circle.
Hi, everybody. This is Patricia W. Fisher with Readers Entertainment Radio, and it is Thursday before Thanksgiving, 21st of November, and can you believe we are almost to the holidays? It is a crazy time of year, and I know that sometimes during this time of year, everyone just kind of needs to sit back and breathe a little bit, and one of the best things that we can do is read an amazing, amazing book. So I have a bit of a suggestion for you. And I have a book, and well, really an author that you just need to pick up here shortly. But let me give her a shout here. I'm going to call her, we're having a little bit of back and forth here with a phone call. But Gina Maxwell is a full-time writer, wife, and mother living in the upper Midwest. And despite her scathing hatred of snow and cold weather, she's an avid romance novel addict. And she began writing as an alternative way of enjoying the romance stories she loves to read. Her debut novel, Seducing Cinderella, hit both the USA and New York Times bestseller lists in less than 4 weeks. And she has been writing full-time ever since. And when she's not writing or reading steamy romance novels, she spends her time losing at games to her high school sweetheart, hanging out with their teenagers before they fly the coop, and dreaming of moving to that beautiful tropical beach somewhere far away from the snow. So we are going to have Gina. Let's see if this works. Gina, are you there?
Oh, yes. I'm
hey.
Sorry.
Here we are. Yay. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, me too. Sorry, my phone was turned on the settings where calls that I don't know just go straight to voicemail. It's super handy for telemarketers, not so handy when you have a radio interview to do.
Sure. No, but now you're here, and that's fabulous. I love it. So what is the weather up where you are today?
Crappy. It's raining and gloomy and icky, but I will take the rain over snow any day. So I guess that's silver lining.
Yes, there is. I read yesterday or the day before, it was on CNN, that there's a town in Alaska that's not going to have sunshine for 2 months. And so,
oh my gosh.
I know. I just thought, well, okay, then I won't be complaining about where I am. And if it's too hot or too cold, I get sunshine.
My season
most days.
Shorter would be like, that would be horrible. It's bad enough in Wisconsin.
Right. Well, and I think, well, if they get 2 months of no sun, then they must have 2 months of sun in the summer.
I do believe that is how that goes. Somewhere up in Alaska or in those like super close to the Arctic. And that would be super hard too, right? Because your circadian clock or whatever it is
rhythm
would be so confused.
Yeah. I know years ago I had the luxury of my grandparents taking us on a Scandinavian cruise, and it was like a crazy 2.5-week thing. And the joke was, for the people who planned the cruise, it was the cruise for the newlywed and the nearly dead, because those were the only people who had actually time to go on a 2.5-week cruise. So we went out of Copenhagen and then up the Norwegian coast, and it of course was in July because everything's iced and such. And it was very interesting because we got to pretty high up on the Norwegian coast, and we were sitting there all talking and sitting in the bar, and it was like, what time is it? Like 2 o'clock in the morning. It was very, very weird because I was like, it looks like 7 in the summer. But yeah, it's very weird.
It is really weird.
But
you have enough
curtains
and all that.
You would. You really would. Well, it'd be like working night shift. I mean, a lot of people who work nights have blackout curtains anyway. So,
that's true.
It's all very exciting and an adjustment. But with all that, if you're snowed in or iced in or the weather's crappy where you are, you have these fabulous books for people to read.
Yes. Yes, I do.
So when you first started, I mean, you've been an avid romance reader for a long time. So what was the first romance novel you remember reading?
Oh my gosh. This question always it terrifies me because my memory is so horrible. I can't remember. I remember, so when I was in college, I was in a small group of women, and we called ourselves the Super Un-PC, name of the Smut Club, and we traded romance paperbacks. And I remember loving a book about a shifter wolf, and it was like the first kind of book like that I had ever read. And I fell in love with it because I really love wolves and stuff. So I don't know who the author was, but it was about a shape-shifting wolf hero. But I do remember, like, the names that I remember reading a lot of was Johanna Lindsay, maybe Susan Sizemore. I was really into historicals back in the college days for a long time, and then I kind of got out of that and switched over to paranormal, which is what I was originally trying to be an author of, was paranormal romance, and then accidentally ended up being a contemporary romance author. So, but yeah, those are, I can't remember specifics that far back as to what the first ones were at all, but so that's a really boring answer. Sorry.
No. I mean, I find it always interesting where people begin because, let's see, I went to college. I'm a little bit older than you, so I was in college in the late 80s, and I remember romance writing was going through this major transition at the time of how stories were told and the role of the hero versus the heroine. And one of the very first stories I read was Whitney, My Love, from Judith McNaught, and then that was just kind of it. Yeah. So then, and then I found Jude Devereaux, and it just, exploded. And of course, that's when you read the book, you sink into the book, and then it's like, what do you mean I have to wait, a year and a half for another story?
Yes. That was the benefits of being in a book club and stuff and just trading, because there was no ebooks to go off of, so you were like, okay, well, have I read that one? No. Okay, give me that one, you have this one. And then that was a long time ago.
I know. Well, and it's fun now because there's so many great new authors coming. So like you have quite a list. So if someone is just now discovering you, they've got a really good list of books they can read, so they won't feel like they're going through withdrawals, immediately when they finish the first book.
Yeah, backlists are helpful in that respect.
They are. So when you first started writing, you were going to write Seducing Cinderella. What was the catalyst? Because you'd read all these great books. What was the catalyst for you to say, I think I'm going to try this?
So truth be told, Seducing Cinderella was a complete accident. As I mentioned, I was originally going to be a paranormal romance author, and my very first contract was for a paranormal romance trilogy. And but because it was going to be put out in paperback, for those who don't know, when something comes out in paperback, it's like a year and a half between the time you finish the book with your editors and everything, and when it actually comes out in the stores, and then it's another 6 months beyond that before you even see any money from it. And I told my editor, I said, look, I can't wait that long to earn an income, so I'm going to have to go back to full-time work. And she did not want that. She wanted me to be a full-time writer. And I said, well, people in a hot place want ice water too. So she said, well, why don't you just try not to swear. People said, why don't you just write me a category romance real quick, and we'll put it out digitally, because that has virtually no lead time. And then that will at least bring in enough so that you can earn an income while we get this paranormal romance book ready to go. I said, perfect. That's a great idea. What is a category romance? I had no idea what it was. So I had read single title. At that time, I was very heavily into Gina Showalter's Lord of the Underworld series, Cressley Cole's Immortals After Dark series, Laura Adrian's Midnight Breed series. I was very heavily into the single title paranormal series. And so I had no idea what, of course I've heard of, Harlequin and Harlequin books, and but I didn't know the term category romance. So she explained it to me. She gave me some examples, and she's like, or first she said, it's the ones with all the tropes. And I said, oh, cool. What's a trope? Because I had also never heard of that word. So I was just a little baby writer. I had no idea. So she explained it to me, gave me some examples to read, and I kind of understood, that the tropes are like the themes of the books and things like that. And so then I had to come up with this idea, right? And I always start with my heroes. So I was scrolling through Google one day and, as one does, looking up, sexy men. And I found a picture of Parker Hurley, who is a male model, and he was wearing athletic shorts and his hands were wrapped like a fighter's. And I fell in love with the picture, and I immediately said, this is my hero. This is who I have to write about. So I was I've always been an MMA fan. And so I thought, I'm going to write about an MMA hero. And that's how the idea for Seducing Cinderella came. And then I wrote it, and we published it. Again, it was only meant to be something to generate a little bit of income for me so that I could focus on my paranormal trilogy. And then it kind of accidentally blew up in the list within 4 weeks, and I was suddenly a contemporary romance author because everybody wanted to know what the next book in that series was. And so we figured, well, it's best to ride this while we can. So I continued the series with, the best friend and the brother, and there's 4 books in that series total. And that's how I have never published paranormal romance.
But you could go back. I mean, what I've noticed is a lot of people, they'll have their main writing, but then always going and branching out a little bit here, there, and everywhere but I mean, I guess it also depends on your deadlines.
It depends on, what your current schedule is and what it allows for, because I have tried to go back to that book many times, and the thing that always stops me is, that was the first book I'd ever written. Now, granted, I wrote it 14 times until it was ready and good enough to sell to a publisher, but it's still not at the caliber that I'm at today, right? Because we're always getting better. So that book I started 10 years ago, and, I started my publishing career with Seducing Cinderella about 7.5 years ago. So I'm way better now than I was originally. So I would have to go back and really probably rewrite the whole book. And not only that, but it was original back then, but since then other people have come out with similar or origin stories or kind of, so it just has to be completely done, and I just don't have that kind of time. So I'm hopeful that I'll have it someday, but right now it's just not in the cards.
So it's that book that's in the box under the bed, figuratively speaking.
Yeah,
right
and I never thought it would be that, because that was the book of my heart. You always talk about the book of your heart is usually one that never actually makes it out there. And I always thought, that's not me, man. The book of my heart's going to be out there. It's going, and that's not how it worked, but that's okay. I've got other passion projects that I'm currently working on that make me just as happy. So.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of that, so you've done the Fighting for Love series, and then you did another series that was like Merciless, Ruthless, Shameless, Hot for the Fireman.
Yeah, that was my
which,
Playboy
who's
Love
not.
series.
Yeah, and now you've ventured a little bit into still contemporary, but you've taken the characters from the Peter Pan series, and said, okay, well, we're going to see who everybody is as an adult. And I was kind of tickled because I saw when you first wrote Pan, I thought, oh, well, this is going to be fun, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is really saucy, delightfully so, and I use delightfully, tongue in cheek because it's spicy, but it was just a fun way to see, everybody grows up.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm having so much fun with this series.
Yeah. And you've got so right now you've got Pan and Hook just came out. What made you want to write about Peter Pan and everybody growing up? And then what made you put them in this particular situation?
It's kind of funny how this came about. I heard the Kelsey Ballerini song while I was in the car one day, her song Peter Pan, and I absolutely love that song. It's, she's essentially singing about a guy that she loves, but he's never going to grow up, and so they can't be together kind of thing. So it's a bittersweet song, and I thought, wow, that would kind of be a great, story to base off of, like, the Peter Pan idea. And originally it was going to be about kind of like a best friends to lovers trope with Wendy and Peter it was going to be more new adult, with them being like in college and him just being this like rich kid who never had any responsibilities. And, obviously by the end of the book, he realizes that he's got to, be responsible, and him and Wendy fall off, or they don't fall off. They fall in love and, right off into the sunset. Very standard NA material, but I thought it was a kind of a fun concept to base it off of. I have no idea when that morphed into what it is now, because it's nothing like that. Honestly, I wish I could remember the moment where I was like, wait a minute, what if I do it this way? And I can't, because, again, going back to the horrible memory aspect that I get to live with. But so essentially what I ended up with is Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, the Lost Boys, and even Hook and Smee and Starkey, so two of his pirates, were all orphans at this place in Neverland, North Carolina, called the School for Lost Boys of Neverland. And so it's not this magical island. It's literally an orphanage. And originally it is run by a very loving older couple who can't have children, but they end up dying in a car crash, and who takes it over is their niece, who is married to a very horrible man named Fred Croc, who represents the crocodile in the Peter Pan stories. So they grow up in this not so great environment. They all persevere, and they end up, once they're out of the school, they all band together. Well, Hook and the two pirates go their way, and the rest of the Lost Boys go with Peter and Tank, and now they're mechanics in Neverland, North Carolina, and it's a coastal town and fictional, obviously. And I just thought, what does it look like for these kids to be adults now? And what does it look like for an original fantasy story with magic and fairies and all this other stuff? What does it look like if I twist that into a contemporary modern world? And that has been the most fun for me, is taking those iconic Peter Pan moments and twisting them into something that will fit for our world and still keeps that original magic without actually being magic.
Right. Well, and it also depends on your definition of magic,
Right.
It's really cool how you pulled that thread, and I find myself nodding and kind of grinning at some of the little subtle things that you write in there. And I have to wonder how many times you've read or watched any sort of Peter Pan, the book or the movies or anything to do with Peter Pan, just to get those little details just so.
I read J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan, the original book. I read it once, and I highlighted all of the things inside of it that I wanted, like all of the lines that I wanted to pull through,
Sure.
These truly iconic moments, like when Wendy gives him a thimble and he gives her an acorn, those types of things. And that was it. I mean, I saw Ron Williams' version of Hook when I was younger. I really liked that.
Sure.
But I don't even know that I've seen the cartoon, the Disney version Peter Pan. I don't know that I've seen it all the way through. I know bits and pieces of it. And I know that there's several other versions out there, but I did not watch any of the movies. What I really wanted to do was kind of an homage to Jane Barry's original story. So I made sure that I read that, and that was not easy because, man, they wrote very differently back then. So it was really kind of hard to get through sometime in some parts, but I really wanted to make sure that I had all the characters there, and they are. I've even added one character. There's only one character in my series who is not an original from the original Peter Pan, but everybody else is there and accounted for, and some of their adventures and things that they happened are threaded through the series.
So the first book is Pan, and that's Wendy and Peter. The second book is Hook, and it is a male-male romance, which I thought was a really cool way to present him. And then, of course, with whom he has his happily ever after. And, when in this planning of the story did you decide that you were going to have Hook, come to whom he really is?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm very big on letting my characters grow and reveal themselves to me, who they are organically. I'm not one of those authors who do huge character analyses before they start writing. I do, all of my prep is done mainly with the plot points that I need to hit in a certain book or series, but I really only allow myself to know the basics of a character before I start writing, because the fun for me is discovering who they are, letting them kind of tell me their own story. And I know that makes me sound crazy, but a lot of us do it that way.
No. Yeah, no, there's plenty of times I'll be writing and I'll say, oh, okay.
Yeah. Isn't that the most fun? That is to me like my greatest writer's high, is when something goes, oh my gosh, that's it. That's what it is. And, it just kind of everything clicks and you have that epiphany moment. So Hook, I think, I knew in the beginning when I was writing Pan that there was going to be a very serious issue between him and Croc, right? Because in the original Peter Pan, the crocodile's always after Captain Hook. So I wanted to pull that through, but I wasn't sure exactly what it was until I started writing, and the very first scene that I wrote in Pan, I knew what it was, and it was sad. Okay. But I wanted to take that through, and then as I was writing, I still wasn't sure that Hook was gay. I didn't know probably until halfway through writing Pan, and when he started having these issues with John meddling in his business, and I just kind of knew that's where that was coming from, was from his past with John, and how they met as kids. And so that's kind of where that took me. And I still wasn't sure if he was maybe bisexual. John, I knew was going to be for sure gay. But I wasn't sure about Hook until I started writing their story, and I thought, no, he's not, I mean, it was just kind of how it flowed into that. And he is truly my favorite character I've ever written. I can't even explain to you how much that man has buried into my heart. James Hook will forever, I think he will forever be my favorite ever. I just don't see anybody topping him. I love him so much.
Well, and I think too that it's one of those moments of the characters that get deeper into our hearts because we kind of reveal them and love them just exactly for whom they are. They really do bury pretty deep. But those characters also can be really hard to write. I mean, were there moments where you were, crying writing him?
Yeah.
Because there were moments I was like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I've never done that before when I write. There was one time I was writing the epilogue of the Fighting for Love series, the very last book, where I teared up because it was like saying goodbye to friends. It was the first series I'd ever closed. But it was like happy tears kind of a thing. But I've never been able to, I've never cried while writing before. But with this book, it's why it took me so long. I was supposed to release it in April. And I didn't release it until the end of October because it took me so long to write. Not only because it ended up being 30,000 words over what I had planned, but also because of the complexity of the story itself. Not only is it some suspense, which is definitely, I bow down to the romantic suspense writers because, oh my gosh, to get all that stuff, all the different facts and stuff right is crazy hard. So that was hard in itself, but the content and the story between Hook and his past, and it's some hard stuff to write and to read. And so I did find myself crying several times in the book.
Yeah.
And I kind of joked online, like, where I said, people ask me if I ever cry, while writing, and I say, no, I've never really done that. And then here's me also writing chapter 22 of this book, and it's, I showed a GIF of like someone sobbing with wine under her desk. It's just, it's an emotional roller coaster for sure. And I've never really been a very filled, story writer, but this one definitely has plenty of it in there. But I don't want anyone to think that it's just, all angst all the time, because there are some moments of levity and definitely parts where, the light shines through. And at the end, I put everybody back together, I promise.
Right, and you do. Yes, you do very much. And there was, as I'm reading the book, there were times I'm like, oh God, it's almost like I'm reading it, through my fingers, because I'm just like, no, don't, don't let that happen. Yeah. Oh no. And which is such a fun read. But I mean, you're right. Trying to balance it all and make sure all the pieces are in place and the pace is where it needs to be, and you don't. You want to give the people what they think is going to happen with a twist, or even throw us off a little, which I think is a lot of fun. But I do love that you keep that same banter between like Pan and Hook. Even no matter what, it's still that same kind of it's not, I guess, a mutual respect is what you could say, to each other, like the yin and yang of it. And I think that's a lot of fun.
Similar characters, but they would never admit it, kind of a thing. Right. You're right. They're very yin and yang. They're two sides of the same coin. They're both leaders in their own right. They both gain the respect of their people or their peers. They've got different personalities. That's what makes them different. But each of them would, put themselves in front of a bus for the people that they love. And I think that's what I really wanted to show, is that, everybody thinks Hook is the villain. But honestly, what nobody knows is that he's actually been the hero the whole time. And he doesn't believe it of himself, but it's very apparent early on in the book that that's exactly what he is. And I loved bringing that dichotomy to his character.
Yeah, where he just feels like he's just unsavable.
Right.
And that what he's done and what he's planning to do is absolutely unredeemable. Right. And I think there's a lot of people like that. And you have it in a situation of kids who have been through the foster system and sadly, there are children who have been through really awful situations. So it's and I remember being in foster care training and sitting there in class, and one lady saying, "So we want to be foster parents, but we really don't want a child with any issues." And we just all looked at her like, "They're in foster care." It's like, I don't understand. Even if it's the most ideal, and I use that very loosely, and I'm actually doing air quotes as I say that. Let's say a family's wiped out in a car accident and these kids are left with no parents. That is not without issues, you know?
Right. Yep.
So every child has gone through some sort of trauma. That's why they're in foster care. And to see that everyone's redeemable, everyone's got somebody who loves them and is worth saving, I think that's important, an important message.
Yeah, I really am glad that is coming through. And there is, triggering material, but I wanted to make it as safe for people to read as possible. So I do have an alternative chapter or an alternative version of a specific chapter that I linked to in the beginning of the book, so that if people do feel like it might be too much, they can read that, and it takes all the triggering material out of it. And then we'll give you the rest of the chapter as is, so you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. The fact of the matter is, I thought long and hard about any kind of backlash that I might receive for kind of putting that kind of content in there. But at the end of the day, I'm all about being true to the characters. And the truth, the horrible truth of the matter is that there are lots of people out here that have experienced these types of situations in their past, and I don't want to erase them. I don't want to erase their struggles, what they've gone through, and I want to show them that just because something like that happened to them doesn't mean that they can't also find love and, be the hero of their own story. So I decided at the end to not water down anything, but also be as respectful as I could of something like that, and just really focus on the emotional stuff and not show anything gratuitously horrible. That was not my goal.
Right. And so now you have Peter Pan and Wendy, and then you have Hook and John Darling, now you're working on Tink.
Yeah.
And so what is, what do you have planned for her?
So Tink, she's a little spitfire, and she grew up thinking she was in love with Peter Pan her whole life. She thought she was in love with Peter Pan, and she didn't realize that she was just basically hero worshiping him. He was, the one who took care of her when she was little. And so once at the end, she realizes that, that's not what love is. And she thinks of him as a brother, in fact. Michael Darling is here to tell her that she has a lot more feelings for him than she's willing to admit. And so this is going to be a cat and mouse type of book, where she's resisting him at every turn, and, she's like a hissing cat, basically. And but he's the one who's going to, be able to make her purr. He's not going to give up on her. So, and there's a little bit more of the foster kid thread thrown in there. He's, he works with the foster children, which was his mother's foundation before she passed. And so there's a specific surly teenager, Jade, who he has to deal with, and he's trying to love and bring into a family. And she's also a little bit of a hissing kitten. So Michael's got his work his work cut out for him in this book, but I think it's going to be fun. It's definitely going to bring the series back up on a lighter note, and we'll see where that takes them. But I think it's going to be a good one.
So what has been your overall response with having the different couples in your series? Because you said, even in Pan, we knew something was going on with Hook and John. So what has been the response? There's always someone who's going to say it was terrible, there's plenty more that say it's fabulous. But what has been your general response that you've gotten?
Honestly, it was. I guess I did a really good job of teasing the two couples that came after, because Hook and John have an epilogue at the end of Pan that kind of gives you an idea. Okay, these guys are going to be explosive, and Tink and Michael even has a chapter in Pan, and that's the beauty of self-publishing, right? I don't have to conform to anyone's rules. So if I want to give Tinkerbell her own chapter, I can, and that's kind of what I'm going to do throughout the series. Is I'm going to continue to show you the different couples. So in Tinkerbell's book, I might show you a scene with Pan and Wendy and kind of check in on them. Anyway, that's going off book. So the people loved those kinds of glimpses at the couples that were coming up, and so they immediately, as soon as they finished Pan, they're like, "When's Hook's book? We need it right now." Or when is Tink coming out, because I need that right now. And so I kind of shot myself in the foot, because it was like, I'm getting right on that. If you could just wait like a good 9 months to a year, that would be great.
Yes, I actually was one of those that immediately texted you and said, hello, where is this? Yes.
Yeah, you did.
I hope it was respectful text.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, those are always great to get, I mean, it shows that I did my job. I did what I wanted to do, is to, get people excited about the next one. So that's great.
So you're going to have Tink, and then who have you kind of planned for after that?
I'm thinking either Thomas or Silas will be next, and of course those are their grown-up names. That's I can't even remember it's Toodles and Noodles and I don't know. They've got
right,
crazy names, but yeah. So I've got all of the 6 Lost Boys plans. So they're all going to have their own book. The twins will be in the same book. And then Tiger Lily is in there with them. And then I've got Keith, who is the only character that I did create, who is Tiger Lily's older brother. He's got his own book. And then I have Smee and Starkey. I decided when I was writing Hook that Smee and Starkey were going to get their own book as well. And so, so there's 10 books in all.
Wow.
Which I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wild ride. It's gonna take me a few years to get through them all. But yeah, I decided I was gonna go with the no lost boy left behind theory. I don't want. Right. They all went through so much as kids. They all need their happily ever afters. So that's what I'm gonna do.
That's true. Well, and so with that in mind, you've got 10 books. Do you sit down and plot? Like, do you have a tree or a timeline, or you have a character sheet and say, so you can go, oh wait, what were his eyes color again in book 2, and how do you keep it all organized?
Yeah, that is on my to-do list. I definitely am going to need a series Bible with this one. This is the biggest cast of characters I've ever written. It's the longest series by far. I already found myself struggling while writing Hook about what details I said in Pan, and certain characteristics or like you said, hair color, eye color, just all of it. I mean, I've got there's 10 books, but that's at least 20 characters. That's even more. So there's a lot of people, and that's not even including the minor characters. It's I definitely needed to get a series Bible together. So that's on my to-do list. I've looked at a couple of different softwares. Right now I've got a lot of notes in my Microsoft OneNote program, but that's going to have to change because that's the other hard part is I have 2 timelines to work with. I have the past timeline and I have the present timeline. So I need to know, because I go back and forth between the past and the present, I need to know what ages they were, what year this was, what happened when, as they go from childhood to adults when they move out, and then I need the current timeline that I'm now creating. So, I'm already going a little batty.
Sure. Yeah, because you're layering in that past childhood interaction with the present day and why this makes sense. And but even, knowing what road they took to get here to there, and it's I've done that with my I have a Tuscany, Texas series, and there's times I'm like, okay, wait, where is this again? And what street did they turn right on? And I don't even know whose house that is.
How do you piece it all together? How do you have a software
I will get back to you on that one. Now, our mutual friend, Terry Wilson, she uses Scrivener, and she really likes it. She says it helps keep things organized. But she also has note cards that she'll write things on and kind of keep things organized that way. So I think everyone's kind of got their own system. Some people do storyboards, like Jolie Navarro, Sasha Summers, they'll do storyboards. I think Emily Mims has she will just have things written out. Like I think she's got a big family tree type setup. I mean, there's just all sorts of everybody. You have to go with what's not going to make you more nuts. Versus it's is that more work for me? Because then if by the time I'm done plotting that, do I even want to write this anymore? So you want to stay excited about the project.
Right. Yeah, I don't think too far ahead as far as the books go. I have a vague idea of a couple of the Lost Boys and what their heroines are going to be or at least kind of look like as far as personalities. But beyond that, I have no idea. So I'm just going to figure it out as I go along.
Right. I think you just have to find out what works. I mean, maybe just buy 20 spiral notebooks when they have them for 25 cents back to school and just this is this.
Cool stuff.
And pay an intern, some sort of college student, to read your books and write as many notes as possible. So, that could be an option. Yeah, you never know.
That's definitely an option.
So we have about 2 minutes left. Tell me who is on your to be read pile.
Oh, my to be read pile. I'm going to be reading my friend Rebecca Yaros's Great and Precious Things that comes out in February. That's going to be amazing. I have, I'm right now reading Infamous by Jenny Holiday, which is a male rock star doctor thing. So I've got those queued up. Also, Cindy Madsen's going to be releasing a couple of Cowboys books, one with Hallmark and one with Source Books pretty close here. So those are on my list. I just got done reading Lorelei James's Spun Out. That was fantastic. So lots of great books.
Yeah. And, it's perfect time of year. Well, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it's perfect time of year to snuggle up and read. And, when it's nice and cold outside, and then it's perfect time to snuggle up and read outside on the beach when it's nice and warm outside if you're in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yes.
So it all works out, win-win.
I'd love to plug, speaking of foster care, and I know this is obviously near and dear to your heart as well, my friend is Rebecca Yaros, and she is an author who has opened up a nonprofit called 1 October Incorporated, and it's specifically geared to raise money and so that she can buy things like duffel bags for foster children, clothing, shoes, so that when they're traveling from home to home, they don't have to take, their one outfit with them in a grocery bag, just to help them get some dignity back, and so that they're not having to go to school with no clothes, nice clothes, things of that nature. And she's running an auction right now to raise money for that, and it's hundreds of signed books. I'm offering my complete collection of signed books. There's services for editing and agents and things like that. So if people want to check that out, they can go to find it on Facebook, 1 October Incorporated. The auction, I believe, is bit.ly link, so it's bit.ly/1 October auction. The 1 October auction, the first three letters are capitalized. That's how that will work. Or they can find me on Facebook. I'm promoting it, all of that stuff, so that it runs through December 1st. So
and I will also include the link in the write-up of the show.
Oh, so, thank you so much. That would be awesome.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Gina, for coming on. And everybody, that was Gina L. Maxwell. You can find her, and all the links to finding her will be in the right above the show. And her latest book, Hook, is out now, so pick it up. Thank you so much, Gina.
Thanks, Patricia.
This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe, and welcome to our circle.
The Hollywood Reporter is your ultimate source for awards race news this fall. Go to THR.com to keep up with this award season's expert predictions from executive editor Scott Feinberg, and tune into the Hollywood Reporter's Awards Chatter podcast for exclusive interviews with the biggest names in showbiz. Stay in the loop with daily newsletters providing real-time updates on all the awards action. Subscribe to THR.com for full access to the Hollywood Reporter and never miss a moment of this fall awards season. Visit THR.com today.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.